I'm a 20-year-old guy, and my fiance, who's 29, has always been my biggest support. We've been together for about 3 years, and honestly, I've always felt like she was my person. Life felt pretty solid. Then everything turned upside down when my dad passed away unexpectedly. Losing him was hard, and to be honest, I wasn't sure how to cope. We had a close relationship, and he was always there for me, even when things with my mom and me weren't great. After Dad's death, I thought it would be a time for family to pull together, for us to grieve together, and for me to lean on the people who mattered most. But that's not how it went down. My stepmom, Karen, was the one I had the most trouble with. She'd been in my life for over a decade, and for the most part, we tolerated each other, but she was never what I'd call warm. There was always this distance, and I felt like she was more interested in her own life than being a mother to me. The truth is, I never felt like I fully fit into her picture of a perfect family, and I knew she had always preferred my dad's attention. But even after all this time, I never thought she'd pull something like this. After the funeral, when all the relatives and friends had left, I thought it would just be me, Karen, and the house that had once felt like home. I was expecting some awkward moments, but I was also expecting a conversation about how we'd move forward. Instead, she started acting like the house and everything in it were already hers to do with as she pleased. I was left feeling like an outsider in my own home. I brushed it off at first. Maybe I was just being paranoid. After all, she'd been married to Dad for over a decade. I figured she had a right to things, but there was something about the way she carried herself that didn't sit right with me. Every time I tried to talk to her about the house, the will, or anything related to Dad's estate, she changed the subject or dismissed me like I wasn't important. It wasn't until I went into Dad's office one day just trying to find some old paperwork that I uncovered something that made my heart drop. I found a will, a new one, and this wasn't the version I thought I'd see. This one had Karen listed as the sole beneficiary, and I wasn't even mentioned. That was when it hit me. Karen wasn't just grieving. She wasn't just trying to move on. She was trying to erase me from everything that was mine. And in that moment, I realized I couldn't just let this slide. To understand why I reacted the way I did, you need to know a bit more about my life with Karen. She wasn't my real mom, and I think that always made a difference. When she came into my life, I was just a kid, and like most kids, I didn't fully understand what it meant to have a step-parent. It was a bit confusing, especially when I was used to just having Dad around. She didn't make it easy, though. I was 8 when they got married, and from that point on, Karen was always more of an authority figure than a friend. She wasn't outright mean, but she wasn't warm either. I could tell she didn't really like me. She tried to bond with Dad, and I guess she saw me as a barrier in their perfect picture of family life. I'd overhear her telling Dad how she wished I'd be less rebellious or difficult, but I always just thought it was part of being a teenager. It wasn't until I was older that I realized just how much her frustration with me had affected my relationship with Dad. Over the years, Dad would try to mediate, but it was like no matter what I did, Karen always found a way to push me away. She was the type to shower Dad with affection and attention, but when it came to me, it was always, "Don't do this," or "You need to change that." I could see how Dad would get frustrated with me too, like he felt stuck between me and Karen. I wasn't a perfect kid, far from it, but I didn't deserve to feel like I was the problem. The real turning point came when I was about 16. I remember one evening, Karen made a huge deal out of something small. I had accidentally spilled juice on the carpet and she went off on me like I'd committed a major crime. Dad was at work, and when he came home, Karen had already made me feel like an idiot. Dad tried to defend me, but Karen didn't back down. That night, I had this sinking feeling that no matter how much I tried to prove myself to Dad, it would never be enough for her. By the time I turned 18, I had already started planning to move out. I wasn't sure how I'd do it, but I couldn't stand living under the same roof as Karen anymore. She and I had this tension that felt impossible to escape, and I couldn't take being in her shadow any longer. When I graduated, I made it clear that I was leaving for college and I wouldn't be coming back home. But even after leaving, I kept in touch with Dad. He always said that he missed me, that I should come home for holidays or special occasions, and I did. But I could tell Karen was never thrilled about it. Her coldness was like a wall I couldn't break through, and it only pushed me further away. But despite everything, I never thought she would go as far as trying to cut me out entirely, especially not after Dad passed away. When I looked at the will, everything fell into place. Karen had been planning this for a while. She'd been inching her way closer to Dad's estate for years, and I had no idea. I thought Dad had everything set up so I'd be taken care of after his passing, but now I had no idea where I stood in his life or his will. This wasn't just about money or property. This was about her erasing me from everything I had once called my family. I couldn't let her get away with it. After discovering the will, my head was spinning. I spent the next few days trying to process what I'd found. It felt like my entire relationship with Karen had been a lie. She'd been playing a game this whole time, and I was the one who'd been blind to it. My dad had always seemed so trusting of her, but now I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been manipulated right up until his last breath. I couldn't just sit back and let Karen have everything, especially not after what I'd seen in that will. I wasn't some naive kid anymore. I was an adult, and I needed to find out exactly what was going on. This wasn't just about inheritance, it was about respect, about not letting someone who'd spent years undermining me walk away with everything my dad had worked for. I didn't even know where to begin, but I knew I had to act fast. So I started digging. First, I went back to the house, pretending like everything was normal. I had to be careful. If Karen caught wind of what I was planning, I'd be screwed. She was crafty, and I couldn't underestimate her. I spent hours going through Dad's old files, pretending I was just looking for something sentimental. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I needed something, anything, that would give me a clue as to what had really been going on. While I was snooping, I couldn't help but notice how much Karen had already started to take over. It wasn't just the will, it was everything. She was making decisions about the house, calling the shots on repairs and upgrades, acting like it was already hers. When I confronted her about it one evening, she brushed me off, saying that she'd been handling these things because I was too young to understand. Her words were dripping with condescension, and I hated it. She wasn't just trying to take over, she was trying to erase me from the picture entirely. But she made one crucial mistake. I overheard her talking to the lawyer one evening when I was pretending to be asleep in the next room. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but her voice carried through the walls. I heard her mention that it's all under control and that the estate will be distributed soon. She was talking about me like I was some afterthought, like I wasn't even a part of the equation, and that's when I realized something important. Karen was already trying to finalize everything without giving me a chance to fight back. The next day, I decided to pay the lawyer a visit. I didn't trust him, not one bit, but I needed to get more information. The will wasn't the only thing I needed to know about. I needed to understand how much power Karen had actually gained over Dad's estate. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that she wasn't acting alone. There had to be more to this, some other shady dealings that I hadn't yet uncovered. I showed up at the lawyer's office under the guise of wanting to discuss Dad's estate, and conveniently, I had a lot of questions. I could tell he wasn't thrilled to see me, but I didn't care. This was my dad's legacy, and I wasn't going to let Karen steal it. The lawyer danced around my questions, but I could tell he was hiding something. I left his office with nothing concrete, but I didn't give up. If he wouldn't talk to me, I'd find another way to get the truth. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I was in too deep to back out now. Karen had already made her move. Now it was time for me to make mine. The tension between Karen and me had been building for weeks, and I knew the moment had finally come. I had been gathering information quietly, piecing together the truth about Dad's estate and Karen's manipulation. The lawyer's evasive answers, Karen's constant power plays, and her dismissive attitude had all led to one inevitable conclusion. It was time to expose her for who she really was. I had everything I needed. I'd managed to get my hands on a copy of the original will thanks to a contact I had at the courthouse, and I compared it to the new one Karen had secretly pushed through. The original will clearly stated that I was the sole beneficiary of Dad's estate, but Karen had somehow convinced the lawyer to alter it. She'd somehow managed to have herself added as the primary beneficiary, cutting me out completely. It was a clear case of fraud, and I had the proof. The next step was to confront her, but I wasn't just going to confront her in private. No, I wanted to make sure she knew that this time there was no escaping what she'd done. I invited her over to the house under the pretense of discussing some final details about the estate. I could see the arrogance in her eyes when she walked in. She thought she had won. She thought she'd manipulated me into submission, but I had other plans. I set the scene perfectly. I had copies of both wills laid out in front of me, along with a few other documents I'd gathered. When she walked into the living room, I didn't even let her sit down. I pointed at the papers and said, "We need to talk about these." Karen's face immediately dropped. I could see the panic start to seep in, but she tried to cover it with a fake smile. "What's this about?" she asked, trying to act casual. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment, watching her squirm. Then I slid the original will over to her side of the table and said, "This is the will Dad signed before he passed. And this," I pointed to the altered one, "is the one you've been trying to pass off as legitimate. You've been manipulating things behind my back, and I have all the proof I need." Karen's face went white as a ghost. I could see the fear in her eyes, and it was like watching someone who had realized they were caught in the act. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words caught in her throat. "You've been playing this game for a long time, haven't you?" I continued. "You've been planning this since Dad's funeral. You thought you could just push me out of the way and take everything, but I'm not going to let you get away with it." She tried to defend herself, but her words were weak, stuttering, and completely lacking the confidence she usually carried. It was clear she hadn't expected me to be this prepared. She attempted to manipulate the situation, claiming I was overreacting, that Dad wanted things to be easy for her, but I could see the cracks in her story. "You think Dad would have wanted this?" I asked, my voice low and steady. "He would have wanted me to be taken care of, not you. You spent years trying to control everything, and now you're trying to steal from me. I won't stand for it." The look of panic on her face was priceless. She finally admitted that she'd been involved in having the will changed. She had convinced the lawyer to alter it shortly after Dad's death, promising him a hefty bonus in exchange for his cooperation. That was the moment I realized how deep her deception had gone. She'd manipulated everyone involved. But I wasn't done yet. I still had one final card to play. I told her I was going to the authorities with the evidence I'd gathered, that I would be reporting the fraud to the police and to the Bar Association. If she didn't fix everything, I would make sure everyone knew what she had done. It was over for her. No amount of pleading or fake remorse could undo the damage she'd caused. I could see her cracking under the pressure. The confident woman who had walked in earlier was now a nervous wreck. She begged me to reconsider, promised that she would make it right, but I knew better. She had already shown her true colors. There was no going back for her. The best part, I walked out of the meeting with the power completely in my hands. I had all the leverage, all the control. Karen, once the one pulling all the strings, was now the one begging for mercy. After that confrontation, everything moved fast. Karen tried to backpedal hard. Called me, texted me, even showed up uninvited to my place, acting like we could just sweep everything under the rug. She had gone from smug and superior to desperate and pathetic overnight. I didn't respond to a single one of her messages. I was done playing night. With the evidence I had, I contacted a new lawyer, someone I trusted, completely unrelated to Karen's shady circle. He took one look at the altered will and immediately said we had a solid case. Fraud, manipulation, undue influence. It was all there, and it wasn't going to be hard to prove in court. We filed everything within days. Karen tried to stall the process, even claimed she was emotionally unstable and needed more time to respond. Classic move. But the court wasn't having it. The paper trail was too strong, and when it came out that she'd bribed the original lawyer to fake the revised will, that was the final nail in the coffin. The judge ruled in my favor 100%. Everything was reverted to the original will, meaning I inherited the house, my dad's savings, and even a few assets I didn't know existed. Karen didn't just lose the money, she lost everything. She was slapped with legal fees, and a fraud investigation was launched into her and the lawyer who helped her. I heard through the grapevine that she was now drowning in debt and facing charges. And me? I was finally free. I renovated the house, my house, and moved in with my fiance. We built a space that felt safe, warm, and real. The energy that used to cling to the place, all that coldness Karen brought, it was gone. It finally felt like home again. I also started digging deeper into my dad's old records and journals. Turns out he had always planned to leave everything to me. There were even letters, ones he never mailed, talking about how proud he was of me and how he hoped I'd use everything he left behind to build a better life. Reading those broke me for a minute, but it also gave me closure. I knew then that I'd done the right thing. I hadn't just protected myself. I'd protected his legacy. Karen made one last pathetic attempt to reach out, sent a letter, handwritten, saying she missed the family and hoped we could find a way to forgive each other. I didn't even open it fully, just tossed it in the trash and moved on. Because here's the truth. Some people don't deserve second chances. Some people reveal who they really are when they think no one is watching. And once you see that truth, there's no unseeing it. I didn't just get my inheritance back, I took my life back. And I made damn sure no one would ever try to take it from me again.